Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the comprehensive yet informal critique of pure reason. Um, Matt, Pat, and Harrison here. A few minutes ago, we just recorded the section 21 remark, which but seemed very interesting because it was shorter than much shorter than all the other titles. So I thought we had something interesting and different in store for us.
Turns out
We
now.
kind of did, but like not really. It was actually really boring. It basically just said nothing new, at least that we could tell in this first paragraph. And the second paragraph talks about how, oops, the second paragraph just talks about kind of how our understanding is limited. We don't really know, for example, why intuitions are the way they are and why we have only space and time as the sole forms of possible intuition. And it seems like, based on this title, the category has no other use for the cognition of things than its application to objects and experience, or objects of experience rather. It seems like we're going to get a whole lot more of that cognition limiting that Kant is so known for and critiqued for by later philosophers. So yeah, that's really all I have to say to begin this. Hopefully, it's a little more exciting, I guess, than the last time, but we shall see. Are there any preliminary comments from you guys?
No,
Um, yeah, I just want to say, let's bear in mind, let's be generous, and just the fact that something limits our cognition should not prima facie be a count against it, right?
Like against Kant?
Yeah, against
Yeah,
well,
no.
any yeah,
I'm not saying that. I was just kind of giving like historical
yeah, they
context.
do critique him for that, but not simply because of that,
No, like there's more that goes into it, but this is just a
right?
big part of his philosophy that is critiqued. Um,
Yeah,
but don't let that like we're gonna go through it, and we're gonna like see what he says and analyze it and be fair and all
yes,
that. So
exactly. No,
so
I'm just reminding the audience.
yeah. So don't be cringing just from the title. Let's see what his arguments are and then go from there. In general, all of us. So cool. Does anyone want to get going reading the paragraph?
okay.
Cool. Take it
Sorry.
away, Harrison.
To think of an object and to cognize an object are thus not the same. For two components belong to cognition. First, the concept, through which an object is thought at all, the category. And second, the intuition, through which it is given. For if an intuition corresponding to the concept could not be given at all, then it would be a thought as far as its form is concerned, but without any object. And by its means, no cognition of anything at all would be possible, since as far as I would know, nothing would be given nor could be given to which my thought could be applied. Now, all intuition that is possible for us is sensible, aesthetic. Thus, for us thinking of an object in general through a pure concept of the understanding can become cognition only insofar as this concept is related to objects of the senses. Sensible intuition is either pure intuition, space and time, or empirical intuition of that which, through sensation, is immediately represented as real in space and time. Through determination of the former, we can acquire a priori cognitions of objects in mathematics, but only as far as their form is concerned. As appearance, whether there can be things that must be intuited in this form is still left unsettled. Consequently, all mathematical concepts are not by themselves cognitions, except insofar as one presupposes that there are things that can be presented to us only in accordance with the form of that pure sensible intuition. Things in space and time, however, are only given insofar as they are perceptions, representations accompanied with sensation. Hence, through empirical representation, the pure concepts of the understanding, consequently, even if they are applied to a priori intuitions, as in mathematics, provide cognition only insofar as these a priori intuitions, and by means of them also the concepts of the understanding can be applied to empirical intuitions. Consequently, the categories do not afford us cognition of things by means of intuition, except through their possible application to empirical intuition. They serve only for the possibility of empirical cognition. This, however, is called experience. The categories consequently have no other use for the cognition of things except insofar as these are taken as objects of possible experience.
All right.
So I find this one actually quite interesting.
Yeah, I was gonna say this
Um,
isn't boring anymore. Thank
yes.
God.
So first of all, he's set up or cognition as opposed to thinking, which has always been a distinction implicitly
But
in Kant.
he's like
He
explicitly
hasn't defined
defines
it
it
till
now.
this moment.
Yeah.
Right? So it's of course one of those places where I wish this had come earlier, because he used the term cognition throughout all the critique up to this point, but hasn't contrasted it with mere thinking,
Yeah.
right? Um, so here we do get, of course, the distinction between cognition and mere thinking, and cognition, right, has the given in it, whereas mere thinking has no given in it and therefore is merely a formal act and does not have an object, so to speak. And interestingly, it sort of clarifies what the argument is for why we need this rigorous thing called cognition. It's not because our heads are empty without cognition, right? We do have thinking, but
Yeah.
it's empty in what sense? In what specific sense is it called empty rather than generally being critiqued as empty?
It lacks
It's
intuition.
empty of object. It lacks an object. What is an intuition? It's what's given to us and therefore is an object for us, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if something isn't, his argument goes, if something is not given to us from outside of us, then it isn't an object for us. And if it isn't an object for us, then we're not applying it to learn anything about it. Now, of course, the question is, well, what about thinking about the subject, right? And I'm not sure if this is ever made clear, but like, what happens when we think about the subject in that
Well, it
case,
depends on
right?
like what you mean because there's a like he mentioned a few sections ago. There's an empirical subject and a transcendental subject. So thinking about either one would work differently, like
I
depending on
see.
which one you're thinking
Can
of.
you remind me about the empirical and transcendental subject distinction? I have
Right.
an inkling of them from the name, but
Right. So the transcendental subject is kind of the subject that receives the intuitions and produces the concepts and is also the entity that combines things synthetically and basically performs opperception. And then the empirical subject uh, is the kind of me that like we usually refer to in everyday like the sense like kind of your sense of identity like in the world and it's a result of the transcendental self um kind of
right,
producing
that
it
makes sense.
as an object
So,
So what
so
about the
the
observation of the transcendental subject? Is that a
can it be
typical
observed?
object-oriented cognition? Well, obviously it can be observed. Otherwise, what is Kant doing?
yeah, I was gonna say that's
Right?
kind of what this work is about.
If he
Um
couldn't observe the transcendental subject, then there wouldn't be a book here.
yeah.
um, so the question is, what's going on when he observes the transcendental subject? Is it this is it an object for him and therefore falling within the category of an intuition, or is it something else that wouldn't qualify as cognition?
Yeah, that's what I'm. I don't know if he goes into it later, and this is actually one of the questions I had. Maybe not as specifically defined as you just had, but this is kind of these ruminations or of this type are one of the reasons that I wanted to get this study going. So I don't really have an answer for you at the moment, and I'm hoping to learn that myself. This is one of the things I'm hoping to find out in here. I do know that some of Kant's critics uh, kind of ask him that as well because they were unsatisfied with how he handled it. But I am curious as to how he specifically does it. Assuming he mentions it all, which to be honest, I'm not sure. Again, it's one of the things that I didn't read when I read some parts of this book. I read like some of the beginning, some of the middle, and some of the end, basically for school, and just in my own exploration. So now that I'm going through it, I'm hoping we can find some elaboration on that question. Um, but this is the setup that we have for now.
Wait,
Yeah.
so just to clarify, the empirical subject is the objectified self?
Yeah. I think the objectified sense of self you have
Yes.
that is like empirical in the sense of that it's like in the world and you are like, oh, like I'm me, I have like a
Well, is it also
personality, I
within
have
you?
interests, I
Yeah, but isn't the transcendental subject also the objectified self in a sense? Right? Because we
I
make
guess
it. Do we not make the transcendental subject an object for ourselves
I
when
guess once you
we
do something
perform
like
the
this.
critiques? Yeah. So I don't think it's good enough to say it's the objectified self.
I guess maybe I fail to see it like the separation between the two.
So one is pure, one is empirical. To start out, I guess. Well, one's transcendental. One
Oh, I
is
think I understand.
one
I
is
see like
necessary for experience to begin,
one is
and one
necessary and
is a
one is
part of the
contingent.
experience. Yeah, basically.
One is contingent. I see.
But more like specifically, like one is a core aspect of experience happening. Like one is a precondition for experience. That's what transcendental means in Kant's sense. And then the empirical subject is just something found within that experience. It's the sense of self that we develop over our lifetime, and we're like, oh, there's me, and I have a name, and I have a personality, and I have interests, and
Well,
it's the usual.
is it not also the transcendental subject in concreto in a flash moment? So, for instance, right,
That's what like
if I
people
have
argue.
amnesia, right, and I'm totally
Mm-hmm.
like wound out of all my experiences, right,
Mm-hmm.
then I would still have an empirical self, it seems, in that moment, right, of what it is I'm particularly experiencing.
Yeah, I think so.
So it's not just our sense of identity, but also, um, well, just the self of experience actually in
Engaged in
concreto.
experience. Yeah, I was just trying to give
Yeah,
an example. That's not like a general definition I was giving, but yeah, you're right. You make a good point there. Yeah.
But then the transcendental self is
the general preconditions of selfhood, I would say.
yes.
Yeah,
Well, then
it's it's
I
it's
I
it's
guess then
the
my
it's
only
the
issue is
it's the
I
opperceptioner
find
is the one
I
that
guess
does
then
the
my
opperceiving. What's up?
I guess then my only issue with this, I guess this is more just a pedantic thing. This doesn't really matter, but it's just I find it weird to refer to that thing as the self.
Um, yeah.
What else do you? What would you prefer?
I don't know.
Well,
I
Harrison, I
mean,
would say
some
hold
term
on to
me
it
is
for now because
necessary.
we're gonna get more into it when he talks about like the eye and things like he's gonna get more into
Yeah,
it. So I would maybe like hold your questions and judgments until once you've
yeah.
like fully comprehended like what he's
The
saying.
transcendental self is just composed of the preconditions for experience.
Specific like it's
Uh,
the subjective part of it where it's
Well,
the
the empirical is, but the transcendental is not subjective.
no, the transcendental is
is
subjective.
subjective, yeah. It's the transcendental subject, the transcendental I, the transcendental self. It's all like the same thing basically, just all synonyms.
Well, it becomes questionable whether such a thing really exists when you think
Well,
about it,
well,
because
yeah, that's what I'm saying.
is it
Yeah.
not? Yeah. So this is a becomes a Hegelian critique again.
Yeah.
Isn't the transcendental subject always conditioned in some way, right?
What is
Can
by
you have
condition?
this? So when you talk about the transcendental subject, Kant's assumption is that it's almost like a state of nature type thing, right? You have first prior a transcendental subject and then actual experience, right?
Yeah.
So the assumption is that you need a transcendental subject first. Um, but what is this transcendental subject? Is it a particular or a universal? Like, is this referring to like a common transcendental subject, or is it like actually me as an actual transcendental subject? Because if it's universal, a universal transcendental subject, it's no longer subjectivity as such,
Right.
right? If it is this abstract universal, but if it is a concrete, actually like actual
Then
subject,
there needs to be under
then it
universal.
needs to be an empirical subject already, because there is no such thing as an actual moment non-abstractly where we aren't an empirical subject.
Yeah.
So Kant seems to want to abstract away, but he doesn't want to lose the subjectivity in the abstraction.
Exactly.
But it seems like you
he gets caught
do
there. Yeah, you're right. And we're gonna get
lose the
more.
subjectivity and the abstraction.
Yeah, which also becomes a big, honestly, even more than Kant. Fichte gets critiqued for that as well. So,
So then, what do I really even prefer? Is the
It's
transcendental subject?
intended to be a subject and not an abstraction, I
So
think,
so so
and should
just
be viewed that way.
I
so
would
just as
say,
But
there's the transcendental logic, the transcendental subject is that which
performs the
it is an
transcendental
actual
logic.
subject, but is not a subject that we directly observe. We just observe the effects of and logically
Well,
see it to be
Kant will
necessary to.
directly observe it later. I mean, he's kind of hinting at it in
Well,
sections like this.
well,
well,
I'm
But
yeah.
not
Well,
sure he
this is
does
my
directly observe it. Doesn't he observe it through the empirical subject?
well. That's my thing. Is like
I don't.
what
We're
are
gonna
we
get there.
observing?
We're gonna get there. Is all I'm gonna say. I
What's
really
It's
don't
not
want to
clear
say these
how.
things.
Yeah, but I think you actually have enough of a grasp, because I think you're reaching the point where you're no longer confused about what it is we're grasping in the sense of like what is he literally saying, but like what is he really saying, if that makes sense, Harrison. I'm saying I think you might have a grasp on it that's as good as you can actually get.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say too. Like, I understand. Yes, there are probably problems
I
with
think
it.
this might actually just be the actual problem with
Yes, Kant's
the
philosophy. Yes.
transcendental subject.
Yeah.
okay.
So we'll see what exactly he lays out and stuff, and then we can talk more about it. But you're right. Yeah, I think you have a good grasp on it, and then yeah.
Yeah.
So, that's the section I think where they're. Yeah.
So
Okay.
yeah,
Section 23 doesn't
transcendental
have a
subject.
title. It's just section 23.
Wow.
Okay.
It is just period.
Yeah.
Period.
It's even more ominous than a remark.
Oh
Okay.
man,
Well,
this is
we'll see you next time for section
Kant is
23.
giving angry girlfriend energy in
Yeah.
terms of these titles. It's like
Matt.
paragraph title, remark, period.
Yeah. Imagine getting a text like this. I would like shit my pants if I got a notification that looked like this. Well, that's what you're gonna get next time. So stay tuned for that and observe your transcendental self or something. I don't know. Haha. Shitty joke to end the.
Oh, hell,
I
what the hell?
wanna use these.
Oh my God, no way, yeah.
Me and transcendental self and empirical self. Crazy split subject. What is going on? All right. We'll see you next time for section 23. Period.